Do you like lichens? Lichens are the colors we often see on rock formations, on the side of a cliff, or on the rocks by a river, or on the trunks of trees. They can be any number of hues, yellows, browns, greens, blues, and reds, and appear almost like huge drops of paint on the surface of their chosen place of residence. And that place of residence can be anything that has stood still long enough to have a lichen grow on it. Not only trees and rocks can be a substrate for a lichen, but also roofs, old farming machinery, or even tombstones. The most interesting thing about a lichen, however, is related to what a lichen is not. A lichen is not an animal, of course, but it is not a plant either. It is not a moss. It is not, strictly speaking, a mushroom. It is, in its most basic definition, a relationship. A lichen is a relationship between a fungus and an algae. In other words, a lichen is not a single thing. It is two things living together in a way so entwined that they have become like a single thing. A lichen is, therefore, a relationship. Fungi are heterotrophs. Much like we are, they must gain nutrients from outside of themselves. We, like all animals, eat food. Fungi, such as mushrooms, absorb nutrients from dead and decaying matter. But the fungi that enter into the relationship that is known as a lichen obtain their food in a different way. That's where algae comes in. Algae are autotrophs, meaning that like plants, they can make their own food. In the lichen relationship, the algae lives within the tissues of the fungus. The algae makes food. The fungus provides protection from the drying effects of sunlight, as well as other dangers, and the two function together in harmony. Two completely different kinds of life, living together symbiotically, harmoniously. Fungi and algae, like plants and animals, do not even belong to the same scientific kingdoms in the classification system, and yet they coexist as one entity, one thing that we refer to as a lichen. All the lichen needs is some clean air, some water, some sunlight, and it goes about its business as it has for millions of years, unaware, apparently, of its uniqueness in the web of life. Consider, on the other hand, a human. Humans seem to need a little more in common with each other in order to build harmonious relationships. Humans, in fact, often seem to need some assurance that they think and act like another of their kind before deciding a particular individual is even worthy of having his or her basic needs met. Though of the same species, humans often cannot imagine offering the same kind of care to another of their own kind as that offered by a fungus and an algae to each other in the lichen relationship. Food and shelter, considered a given by these two non-sentient beings, and offered to one another freely and harmoniously, might be an unimaginable stretch to two humans who view themselves as different in some way, though they have much more in common with each other than a fungus does with an algae. And since humans are capable of offering each other so much more than food and shelter, but love and compassion, and even more, they could achieve heights of harmony a lichen could only imagine. But that would mean being able to see past the differences. We live in a world in which humans seem to be trying to find ways to distance themselves from one another. We live in a time in which differences seem insurmountable. It may make us feel angry, disappointed, frightened, sad, or frustrated. Perhaps we feel like escaping it all in some way, or that everything seems hopeless, or that there is nothing we can do. But all we need do is walk outside and consider the lowly lichen spreading across the trunk of the maple tree in the front yard, or the rock at the edge of the water at the park. All we need do is stand in the silence for a moment and really look at it. Notice its beauty and its uniqueness among all the creatures of this world. See how living in relationship has enabled this creature to live and survive for millions of years. And then imagine how we can be algae and share a pie, or a grocery bag full of food for the food pantry, or our time at the soup kitchen, or a letter advocating for feeding the hungry. Perhaps we can imagine being a fungus that shares protection, a listening ear in another person's time of need, advocacy when our brothers and sisters are being mistreated, donations for a shelter in need of clothing. A lichen isn't very big. It doesn't stand out and make everyone gasp in appreciation. But it doesn't have to be big or showy to do what our Creator made it to do, live in harmonious relationship. And neither do we.